So the limited series of Obi-Wan Kenobi has just wrapped up, and I think it gave a pretty good bridge between how Obi-Wan should be feeling and characterized between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Now, with this being done, you might be wondering, are there any stories left to even tell of Obi-Wan now that he's kind of got his mojo back and he's going to go off and train with Qui-Gon? And I actually think there's a bunch of things, so let's go over some of the stuff that I think will happen or could happen or should happen in Season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We know that Obi-Wan has gone off with Qui-Gon to start training, and interestingly, Qui-Gon said, "Come on, we've got a ways to go," and that leads me to believe that they're going to a Vergence. Now, Vergences in Star Wars are areas that have a unusually high concentration of Force energy, and it allows Jedi and Sith, or any Force users really, to get a deeper connection to the Force, and often it gives them visions and different Force abilities that they might not have in other places. And they're really important because that's where the Jedi and Sith have built all their temples. For example, on Coruscant, the Jedi Temple was built on a Vergence. And there was also a Vergence in Dagobah when Yoda had Luke go into the cave and he saw a vision of his father, but then it was him, and so, that kind of thing. It seems unlikely that a Jedi temple would actually be out there on Tatooine because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere on an outer rim planet, so I really doubt that there's a temple. If anything, there might be like an old shrine or something that was long forgotten or abandoned there, but I really don't think that they're going to an actual temple. He's just probably going to some specific place that is the Vergence and not much else there. Now, I don't think in Season 2 he actually needs to leave Tatooine. I mean, obviously the more he leaves, the closer to canon breaking it is, if you don't already consider the canon broken. But I think he could actually just really stay on Tatooine, and we would focus on his journey now on Tatooine and his journey through the Force in this next season. A really interesting thing that I think we should see at some point is Obi-Wan going through the trials, the same ones that Yoda went through in Season 6 of the Clone Wars. Now, this helps them to complete their training, I should say, and kind of find out how to manifest themselves in life after death. So, using the Force, becoming a Force ghost, and things like this, and I think we should figure out how Obi-Wan learns to do this. It was a really good arc for Yoda in the Clone Wars series, and if you haven't seen that, you should definitely watch it. And I think that even though Yoda had to go to different planets physically, and he would go to these different planets and do different tests and trials, I think hopefully with Qui-Gon actually leading Obi-Wan and guiding him, he could do it all from Tatooine just through the Force. These trials, I think, would make perfect sense for why there would need to be a Vergence to do this. I mean, hell, the planet that Yoda went to for his trials, I'm pretty sure the whole planet was a Vergence, so you need something that's really strong in the Force, and you need to be able to dive literally deeper than you've ever gone in the Force to understand these trials and go through with them. So I think this journey would be really interesting to see Obi-Wan do, because we haven't got that really spiritual side of Obi-Wan yet that I think would be great to be fleshed out in live action. I also really want to see a long conversation between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon as to whether he thinks that he did the right thing by training Anakin and ultimately, the fate. I mean, honestly, Qui-Gon's probably like, well, if I trained him, this wouldn't have happened because, I'm a better master for Anakin, which I kind of agree with. I think he would have been more of a father figure to Anakin, which is something that Anakin never had, instead of a brother like Obi-Wan. So I think that would help. Also, the fact that Qui-Gon often doesn't agree with the Council and either does his own thing or finds clever ways to not do what the Council wants, which I think would have played way better into Anakin's life, because Anakin's life was a series of not agreeing with the Council, and all he had was Obi-Wan, who was essentially very strict. He would maybe bend the rules a little bit, but he would never break a Council's order, and I think he needs someone that operates a little bit more in the gray area, and I think that would have really suited Anakin's learning a lot better, and maybe ultimately not led him to the dark side. I think there should be some dedicated time to Obi-Wan and Yoda communicating through the Force and either learning how to do that, but more interestingly, I think we should hear how Yoda's feeling at this point in time, or what's going through his head. I feel like he's even more broken than Obi-Wan at this point because he really has no hope left. Even when Luke shows up, he's like, I'm not going to train him. I'm not going to make this same mistake again. But literally, he has no plan other than just to wait out his life and die on Dagobah. So I really feel like it'd be interesting to kind of hear if he sounds as broken or if he just kind of covers it up. Which makes a little bit of sense because the Jedi Order was around for thousands of years and it was almost completely destroyed under his leadership, which, that must be quite the blow, I imagine. If there's one thing I'm absolutely sure I want to see more of in Season 2, it is more flashbacks with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Hell, even bring back Padme I think would be great. Even bring it back so far to a time when Obi-Wan was still a thing with Satine. I think that would be amazing if they could mirror a episode around him and Satine and his relationship with Anakin and Padme, and then show how they went in completely opposite directions. I'd be really interested to see if someone else showed up on Tatooine, now how Obi-Wan would react to their presence. Obviously, we know in Season 1, he was just like, yo, I don't know you, just go away, and then that guy ended up dying. And I wonder if Obi-Wan would make a concerted effort to help the new Jedi that comes and finds him or not. Because I think at this point, obviously, he would help them because he's had this new change of heart and he's, part of a new hope and everything. So it would make a lot of sense, but I could see him, maybe giving them Haja's name and pointing them in that direction, which would also lead to great spin-off stories of those Jedis that are trying to escape. They end up finding Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan directs them to Haja, and then this whole Jedi smuggling operation would be really interesting. Also, probably a great way to introduce Quinlan Vos into the series, and maybe get a spinoff just with him and his smuggling ring, I think would be really interesting. I actually don't think that Darth Vader needs to or should return in Season 2. I think that you talk about breaking continuity. I think it would almost certainly break continuity if they met for another time. I guess he could be in the show without them meeting, but I don't think they can meet because that Vader would still have to lose, and I think Vader losing for a third time would start to cheapen the impacts of their prior fights, and at this point it's just kind of comedic if they fought again and then Vader just keeps losing until A New Hope. So I don't think he actually needs to come back at all. I also feel similarly with Leia and Obi-Wan. I don't think she needs to be in the second season because if they start to have too much interaction with each other, she would start to view him as like a father, or at least a godfather, and that would imply a relationship much closer than they had in Episode 4, A New Hope. So I think it would make more sense for him just to really honestly never see her again until Episode 4, because that way, I would say an older Leia was like, yeah, I remember meeting this dude for a couple days when I was like 10 years old, and I think that would make more sense as to why she had a very, not super deep relationship with Obi-Wan when she reached out to him in A New Hope. Clearly, I think there's a good amount left to be explored with Obi-Wan and his journey through the Force, and a second season would make a lot of sense. But I'm sure there are storylines that I didn't even cover, so let me know down in the comments, what would you really like to see in a second season of Obi-Wan Kenobi? For now, I'm Keegs, and I will catch you all next time for some more Star Wars content.